Welcome to Burn Alive, the podcast where starting over is cause to celebrate, and we rebuild with power and joy. I'm your host, Meredith Byrne. On today's show, I welcome my first ever guest. We talk about the super gross Your Body, My Choice meme, what parents need to know, and what women can do to prepare and protect. Hey, Glow Getters. Nice to see everybody again. Today is a big day for me on the show Burn Alive because I invited my first ever guest. And I'd like to introduce you to my friend Sneha. Hi, Sneha.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me. I invited Sneha today because she is a relationship expert and educator. And Sneha, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some events that have gone down last week that I found kind of concerning, and I thought you might have some really good insight into. So there's this post-election meme that has been circulating that men and boys have been using to gloat and also to terrorize women.
Yeah, they are having boys and men come up to them or message them and state, "Your body, my choice."
Like I like have like this visceral reaction every time I hear it or repeat it.
I get chills. Yeah.
It's gross. From what I've seen, the women to whom this has happened have been stunned and shocked, understandably, because to me it sounds like a threat.
It is a threat. And it's happening a lot over the last couple of days.
So I did a little investigation into where this might be coming from. The results were really kind of interesting, and I don't know if you have any knowledge about incels.
No.
Okay. So incel is a term that means involuntary celibates, and it is the way that some young people in our country identify themselves. Involuntary celibates kind of banding together because they have been wronged by girls and women and society and pushed to the outskirts, and they support each other. And this group is targeted by the alt-right. So those hate groups that are kind of loosely connected, and there are some kind of leaders and masterminds among them who do very particular marketing to young boys and men. It's been going on for a long time. Some of it's very subtle. It's kind of like being the lobster in the pot before you start to boil the water. You know, it starts out with memes and it starts out with little things. And all of a sudden, like, you have this sense of community, and then the mindset follows through.
I mean, there's definitely some power being felt in these young boys and men based on what they are seeing on social media, hearing, and what's happening in America right now. And some of them find it as a joke who may not fully understand what is truly happening. And others of them understand it and they know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they're doing it on purpose because they feel this right to be able to do it.
And kind of like this sense of fighting back as well. Like, I was thinking about the concept of incels because I hadn't really heard of it before. And I mean, I think like anyone can relate to being pushed on the margins in some way or another and being left out, you know, but it's like that unhealthy, it's somebody else's fault and I have to get them back for it. A lot of this behavior reminds me, and actually it might be different for you, but for me, it reminds me of playground behavior when I was growing up. You know, like, you would have someone run up to you, assault you, yell "titty twister," and then run away, and it was nothing. At recess. You know, that was my experience as a Gen Xer, for example.
I personally did not experience that. However, I have heard of it even still happening in especially elementary schools. And it's you described it as like titty twister, but what I have heard is more so like slapping a butt. Yeah.
It's
Yep.
assault. Like, we're not going to call it anything else. It's assault.
And it's happening at young ages because either it's the parents that are not teaching, or it's society, or I mean, younger and younger kids are getting on social media, are having phones and all of these things, and they're seeing things, they're learning things. They think it's a big joke, especially at that age. And there can be games played as to how many girls can you slap in the next 15 minutes.
And it can be also premeditated in the sense that, like, there's one friend with a phone catching the video of it. So now we have kind of like a double violation, because, like, not only are you putting hands on someone, but you're making it public and really dehumanizing that person. When I was teaching, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I saw that when I was teaching a couple of years ago. And I honestly, I don't know if people who aren't in school communities are aware.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people who are not around children on a daily basis in these schools are aware of what is truly happening, and how early on it's happening. But then there's another side to it too, where the girls themselves may not be aware that this is considered assault.
Yeah.
And there are some girls that are jealous that other girls are being slapped on the butt, and they want to be slapped on the butt, which is so sad and so scary that they have that mindset that nobody has taught them yet, that no, this is not okay. This is not what you should be asking for.
It's so tricky though, because you want to be accepted as a kid and as a female. For a lot of women, and I'm not saying it's true for all, but like, there is that wish to be desirable, which kind of falls under that umbrella of being accepted. And so I can kind of see the connection. I think there's also the idea of, like, the third group of people who may be on the sidelines, but like, there is so much this culture of don't talk to adults, don't tell adults, snitches get stitches kind of a thing, us and them, making the adults the them. And what that really does is it isolates the people who are being assaulted from help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's this need of wanting to belong, wanting to get that attention, even if it's negative and wrong attention, where it violates boundaries in many different ways. And then, you see the bystanders, as you were saying, people that are just on the sideline. And are they as much to blame for not speaking up? Potentially. I mean, you, as a bystander, you have a choice. And if you're not doing anything, are you part of it? Are you cheering them on? What are you doing?
What do you think is the message to parents?
Be vigilant. Be aware. Don't assume that your kid would never do something and that your kid is innocent. If you don't have strict controls, put on stricter controls. Look at their phones. Look at their devices.
Do you have any recommendations? Like, I know some people use Bark. Some people use different apps. Is there anything that you have seen or come across?
I've heard of the Bark. Life 360, I think, is another. And then each device, depending on what kind of device it is, has their own controls too. I know Apple is very secure with the controls that they have. Like on my kiddo's iPad, I can control limits and websites and things that they're allowed to go on. And I can look at any time to see what they have been doing and when.
But you're a single mom. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
When do you do it?
When I can. Typically, they're not allowed to have their iPad in their room while they're sleeping. So I can look in the evening,
That's a big one.
Yep.
That's a big one. So what do you teach young girls and women about these situations?
So first of all, I don't just teach it to young girls and women. I teach it to boys, to all genders, because they all need to be vigilant. They all need to be aware. And it doesn't matter what gender you are, because it can happen regardless of gender.
Thank you.
But it's also important that even if it doesn't happen to you, if you witness it happening to somebody else. So teaching just one specific group isn't going to help everyone. So I do focus on all, but I spend a lot of time discussing what is considered healthy and unhealthy, what is considered abuse, and what is considered a infraction of our boundaries. Like, we spend a lot of time talking about what are boundaries and why are they in place and how to communicate effectively. I do a lot of work on how to avoid risky situations or how to escape risky situations, how you can make plans ahead of time, and plan for things in case something happens. You know, it's not saying that you don't have to experience certain things, but if you can set yourself up to be able to get out of it if it does go wrong or if something happens, you know, it's the same thing as, sure, you're going to go walk at night, but carry mace with you just in case, right?
Yeah.
So you're preparing.
Yeah. So, all right. So okay. I'm a 15, 16-year-old young girl going to school on Tuesday after the long weekend. What would you recommend I think about or do to prepare for a possible verbal assault or a physical assault at school?
Try not to ever be, sorry. The cat on the screen. So I would say, first of all, depending on, you know, what school you're going to, most schools, the hallways are packed in between classes. Walk with a friend if you can. Always be prepared for something to happen. And if it were to happen, immediately report it to the closest adult. There's usually adults in hallways trying to watch over kids, make sure there's nothing happening that shouldn't be happening. So immediately report it. If you receive messages, screenshot, immediately report.
A lot of schools have ways that you can report anonymously too, right? Because I know that whole, like, you can be ostracized pretty soundly for telling these days.
Yes. So there's there's apps like the Stop It app that allows for anonymous reporting. And you can always report things anonymously to it, or, I mean, you wouldn't be anonymous the first time, but you can ask to remain anonymous as it continues on, you know. And as for which adult to report it to, honestly, any adult in the building is a mandated reporter. But I would recommend either the closest adult to you or find the one that you feel most comfortable talking to. And go with a friend if you have to, you know?
Yeah. I guess I want to add a little bit to that. I think that we as people, I was going to say females, but people need to stop using the euphemisms that aggressors want us to use. And when you report, I think it's okay to say, I was just verbally assaulted.
Yes.
Or I was just physically assaulted. Call it what it is.
Yes, exactly. Call them out on their behavior. And I think the biggest thing is to be aware that this is happening. I think no matter what it is that is said to you or done to you, nothing is too small. Anything that violates your boundaries is assault in a way of making a threat towards you, to harm you in a sexual or physical, emotional way is a violation of your boundaries and is considered assault. And even if you're on the fence as to whether or not it is assault, you are better to report it than not to report it.
Right. Because, well, you're anguishing over, was it assault? Was it not? I don't want to get someone else in trouble. They're not having anguish over you.
No. And they're probably doing it to others too.
Yeah. I mean, in the moment, I know this is something that I can't imagine 14-year-old me doing or 13-year-old me. But it's something that I tell the young women in my life. No is powerful. It's not a joke. And in the moment, if you can, and it might be something that I would recommend you practice with your mom or your dad or with a friend, saying no like you mean it. Like, no.
Yeah.
You don't touch me.
And it's important to understand that no is also a complete sentence. It is a complete sentence. No, period. You may have to say it more than once. You may have to say it in other ways. You can also use your body language to show that you are saying no to go along with it. And I teach students this too. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. Back up. Put your hands up and say, no, this is not okay. No, I am not consenting to this. For sure.
Any other advice that you think that we should share on this topic?
I would just say that if you happen to be someone who witnesses something, even if you are not directly involved, if you witness it in a hallway, if you witness it in a classroom, if you happen to receive something in a group text towards somebody else or in a group chat, whatever it might be, you should also be reporting it.
It's scary. You don't want to become the object of the bully. But no. I also want to say this to you, like, meaning everyone, especially kids and teens. You will be, like, by being quiet, it doesn't protect you. You will eventually be the target of a bully. And if you're not speaking out, and maybe you're not safe in the exact moment in the hallway, and maybe you find a safe way to do it, but if you're not speaking out, you're allowing it to happen.
Yeah. And if it happens to someone else, there's a chance it can happen to you. Nobody
or your
is
little
immune
sister
from it.
Or your little brother.
Yeah. Nobody is immune from it. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, your race, your religion, your gender. It can happen to anyone. And it is scary. But we have to band together and we have to speak up and we have to report. And if you happen to have a device on you, start recording.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can also put the fear in the abuser that they are now being recorded and their behavior will change and they will stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes evidence.
That's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion. I feel like it's important that we talk about this. You know, back in the day, I was a big Harry Potter fan, and, you know, everybody at Hogwarts was afraid to say Voldemort, which gave Voldemort a certain amount of power, right? If you follow that story. We need to not be afraid to say things like assault, like misogyny. We need to use the words.
Call it as it is.
That's what it is. And if we pretend otherwise, it gives it room to thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They feel more emboldened if we do not report it.
Mm-hmm.
If we just let it go, it's going to get more and more and more. So it's very important to report it and use the factual terms of what it is that is happening.
The last thing I want to say to the younger millennials and Gen Z women, and also women our age as well, because let's be real, like you and I have been out there. We're both single. It's yucky.
Yes.
So really, to women of all ages, like, you're not alone. And find your friends, find your people, and stand with them. And lean on each other, because we are strong enough. Like, they have no idea.
Yeah. And if we're able to lean on each other and support each other, we will come out on top eventually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good Lord, no doubt. Really?
Yes.
All right, my friend. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. There's so much more to talk about. You're going to have to come back.
Definitely.
All right. Well, be well and enjoy the long weekend. And we'll catch up again soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds great.
All right, go-getters. Thank you for watching. Catch you later. Bye-bye.